there is a window. Right now. Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech. A literal opening in the fabric of your life that appeared the moment you pressed play on this video, and it will not stay open forever. 48 hours. That is what you have. Not because some cosmic clock is ticking down to punish you, but because the specific alignment between your awareness and your readiness has reached a point of critical instability. The kind that either tips into transformation or collapses back into the familiar. And if you have ever wondered why certain videos find you at certain moments, why out of the millions of things you could be watching right now your attention landed here, then you already sense that this is not random. Nothing about this moment is random. But to understand why, and to understand what these next 48 hours actually are, you need to know something about the physics of timing that almost nobody talks about. Let me take you somewhere specific first. In 1978, a physicist named John Wheeler proposed one of the strangest experiments in the history of science. It was called the delayed choice experiment, and it did not just challenge what we knew about particles. It challenged what we knew about time itself. Here is the setup. In the classic double-slit experiment, a photon, a single particle of light, is fired at a barrier with two slits. If no one observes which slit it goes through, the photon behaves as a wave, passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern on the detector behind the barrier. The moment someone observes which slit the photon passes through, it behaves as a particle, choosing one path and one path only. The act of observation collapses possibility into a single outcome. You have probably heard this before, but Wheeler asked a question that turned the entire thing inside out. What if you delay the choice of whether to observe until after the photon has already passed through the slits? Think about that for a moment. The photon has already traveled. It has already, in theory, either gone through both slits as a wave or one slit as a particle. Its behavior should be settled. Past tense. Done. But Wheeler proposed, and experiments later confirmed, that the decision to observe, made after the photon has passed through the barrier, still determines how the photon behaved. Not how it will behave, how it behaved. As if the future observation reached backward through time and shaped the past. This is not philosophy. This is verified physics. Experiments by Alain Aspect and others in the 1980s, and more sophisticated versions at the Australian National University in 2015, confirmed exactly this result. The observer's choice, made in the present, retroactively determines the behavior of a particle in the past. The present reshapes the past. Let that land where it needs to land, because it is the key to understanding what is happening to you right now, in this window, in these 48 hours. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. The series of events that brought you here, the restlessness, the searching, the particular flavor of dissatisfaction or longing that made you click on this specific video, those were not random firings of a chaotic universe. They were the past arranging itself around a choice you have not yet made. Just like Wheeler's photon, the trajectory of your recent life is not fully determined yet. It is suspended, waiting. And the observation you make in the next 48 hours, the choice to truly see what is being shown to you, will collapse the wave of your possibility into one definite path. Not because of magic, because of the actual architecture of how consciousness and reality interact at the most fundamental level. But I need to be precise about what I mean by 48 hours, because this is not a countdown to disaster. It is a window of neurological and energetic receptivity, and there is hard science underneath it. Your brain operates in cycles, not just the circadian rhythm of sleep and waking, but deeper cycles of neuroplasticity, periods where the brain is measurably more capable of rewiring itself. Research from the Huberman lab at Stanford and from studies on memory consolidation, has shown that after a significant emotional or cognitive event, there is a window of approximately 24 to 48 hours, during which the neural pathways activated by that event are in a state of heightened plasticity. They are soft, moldable. During this window, the brain is literally deciding whether to encode a new pattern or reinforce an old one. After the window closes, the pathways harden. The old pattern reasserts itself, and the moment of openness passes as if it never happened. This is why you can have a profound realization at 3 in the morning. Feel the entire shape of your life rearranging itself, and then by Thursday afternoon, find yourself back in the same loops, the same reactions, the same quiet desperation you thought you had transcended. The realization was real. The window was real. But the window closed before you moved through it, and the soft neural clay hardened back into its previous shape. If this is already resonating with something you feel right now, take a moment and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That single action is itself a micro-choice, a small collapse of the wave function in the direction of the new pattern. Now let us keep going. So when I say you have 48 hours, I am pointing to something physiologically precise. Something in your life has already cracked open. You may know exactly what it is. You may only feel it as a nameless pressure, a sense that something is shifting beneath the surface. Either way, the crack is there, and the tissue around it is still soft enough to be reshaped. 48 hours from now, give or take, that tissue begins to harden. Not because the universe is punishing you, because that is how biological systems work. Openness is metabolically expensive. The body cannot sustain it indefinitely. It opens, it waits, and if nothing moves through the opening, it closes to conserve energy. The question is not whether you believe this. The question is what you recognize in your own experience right now as I describe it. If you are feeling that recognition, there is something deeper I want to offer you. Have you spent years chasing manifestation, visualizing, affirming, raising your vibration, only to watch the same patterns repeat? Every traditional method assumes the same thing, that you are separate from what you want. That separation was never real. You were chasing a signal you were already broadcasting. Beyond the frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery walks through all 9 frequencies, from the dense transmissions trapping you, through the ascending currents, to the master frequencies where consciousness becomes the field. Every method you tried sent a signal outward. This one tunes the signal you already are. Every day you delay, your nervous system broadcasts the same old signal, and breaking free gets harder. So move on it tonight. The link is in the pinned comment below. Now back to the crack that brought you to this moment. Think about the last week. Something happened. Maybe it was external, a conversation that unsettled you, a loss, a strange synchronicity, a door closing that you expected to stay open. Or maybe it was internal, a thought that arrived uninvited and would not leave, a dream that felt more real than your waking life, a sudden and inexplicable exhaustion with the version of yourself you have been performing. Whatever it was, it cracked the surface. And the fact that you are here, listening to these words at this exact moment, means the crack has not yet sealed. You are still in the window. Now I want to take you deeper into what actually happens inside that window, because it is not what most people think. Most people believe transformation is about adding something. Adding a new belief, a new habit, a new practice, a new identity. But the physics of phase transitions tells a completely different story. In thermodynamics, a phase transition is the moment a substance changes from one state to another. Ice to water, water to steam. And here is what is counterintuitive about phase transitions. At the exact moment of transition, the temperature does not change. You can measure this yourself. Put ice in a pot on the stove and watch a thermometer. The temperature rises steadily until it hits 0 degrees Celsius, and then it stops. The ice begins to melt, but the temperature holds perfectly still. Energy is still pouring in, but instead of raising the temperature, that energy is going entirely toward breaking the bonds that hold the ice in its rigid structure. Physicists call this latent heat, hidden heat, energy that is absorbed without any visible change in temperature. The system looks like nothing is happening, but everything is happening. The entire internal structure is being dismantled, bond by bond, molecule by molecule, to allow the substance to exist in a completely new state. This is exactly what is happening to you inside this 48-hour window. You may feel like nothing is changing. You may feel stuck, flat, confused, even regressing. That flatness is not failure. It is latent heat. It is the energy of transformation being absorbed into the dissolution of old structures. The bonds that hold your current identity in its rigid shape are being broken, not by force, by the sustained application of awareness, by the simple, radical act of staying present to what is actually happening instead of running back to the familiar. And here is where most people lose the window. They feel the flatness, the confusion, the discomfort of a structure dissolving, and they interpret it as a sign that something is wrong. They reach for the old pattern. They pick up the phone and send the text they know they should not send. They pour the drink. They start the argument. They retreat into the identity that was cracking open. And they seal the crack with the very behavior that created the pressure in the first place. Not because they are weak, because the dissolving of internal structure feels, at the level of the nervous system, almost identical to dying. The body does not distinguish between the death of a belief system and the death of the organism. Both register as existential threat. Both trigger the same cascade of cortisol and adrenaline. Both produce the same overwhelming urge to do something, anything, to make the discomfort stop. This is the moment the window is actually testing. Not your knowledge, not your spiritual vocabulary, not how many books you have read or how many videos you have watched. It is testing your capacity to stay in the fire of dissolution without grabbing for the nearest exit. And that capacity is not built in the moment. It is built by everything you have been through up to this point. Every time you sat with discomfort a little longer than you wanted to. Every time you chose not to react when every cell in your body was screaming at you to react. Every micro moment of restraint, of presence, of choosing awareness over automation. All of that was preparation for this window. This one, the one you are inside right now. I want to pause here and ask you something. What is the crack that brought you to this moment? What broke open in the last few days or weeks that you have been trying to either fix or ignore? Put it in the comments. Not for me. For you. Because naming it, writing it out where it becomes visible, that is the first act of observation. That is the first collapse of the wave function from vague inner pressure into something real and defined. Let me tell you about an experiment that makes this even more concrete. In the 1990s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet conducted a series of studies that shook the foundations of what we believe about free will. He asked subjects to perform a simple action, flicking their wrist whenever they felt the urge to do so, while he monitored their brain activity with an electroencephalogram. What he found was startling. The brain's motor cortex began firing, preparing the wrist flick, a full 350 milliseconds before the subject reported feeling the conscious urge to move. The brain decided before the person was aware of deciding. The unconscious moved first. But here is the part that most people miss when they cite this study. Libet also discovered that in the roughly 150 milliseconds between becoming aware of the urge and the actual execution of the movement, subjects could veto the action. They could feel the impulse rise, recognize it, and choose not to act on it. The unconscious initiates, but consciousness has veto power. This is the architecture of your 48-hour window. The old patterns will fire. The urge to retreat, to react, to collapse back into the familiar. That urge is already in motion. It was initiated by your unconscious the moment the crack appeared, because the unconscious is a conservation engine. Its job is to maintain homeostasis, to keep you in the known, to prevent the metabolic expense of genuine change. That urge is not your enemy. It is your biology doing what biology does. But you have veto power. You have the capacity, in that thin sliver of awareness between the impulse and the action, to choose differently. To let the impulse rise without obeying it. To feel the pull of the old pattern without following it back into the old shape. And that veto, exercised consistently across the next 48 hours, is what allows the phase transition to complete. It is what lets the latent heat do its work. It is what keeps the window open long enough for the new state to crystallize. But I want to be honest with you about something. This is not easy. And anyone who tells you transformation is easy is either selling something or has not actually been through it. The window does not feel like a gift when you are inside it. It feels like a crisis. It feels like the ground you have been standing on is dissolving and there is nothing beneath it yet. That is accurate. There is nothing beneath it yet. The new ground has not formed. You are in the space between states, and that space has a name in every wisdom tradition that has ever mapped the territory of human transformation. In alchemy, they called it the nigredo, the blackening, the stage where the original substance is broken down into its most basic components. It is depicted as darkness, putrefaction, decay, not because the alchemists were morbid, but because they understood that genuine transformation requires the complete dissolution of the previous form. You cannot turn lead into gold by polishing the lead. You have to melt it down. You have to destroy its structure entirely. And in the crucible, before the gold appears, there is a stage that looks and feels like destruction. The Tibetan Buddhists mapped the same territory in the Bardo teachings. The Bardo is the intermediate state between death and rebirth, but it is not only about physical death. Every moment of genuine transition is a Bardo. Every time one version of you dies and another has not yet been born, you are in the Bardo, and the teachings are explicit about what happens there. The mind, stripped of its familiar reference points, begins to project its deepest fears and attachments as vivid, convincing appearances. The Bardo is not empty. It is full of phantoms, and the practice is to recognize them as projections, as the mind's desperate attempt to reconstitute the old reality, and to let them pass without grasping. This is what the next 48 hours may feel like: phantoms. Old fears surfacing with unusual intensity. Thoughts you thought you had resolved reappearing with fresh urgency. The sudden conviction that you are making a terrible mistake, that you should go back, that the old life was not that bad, that change is too dangerous, too uncertain, too costly. These are not insights. They are the Bardo projections of a psyche in transition, and the practice is the same one the Tibetans prescribed. Recognize. Do not grasp. Let them pass. Now, I want to give you something specific to work with. Not a vague instruction to stay present. Something precise, something you can actually do in the body, in real time, when the phantoms appear. There is a space in your body, and I want you to find it right now, between the base of your throat and the top of your sternum. A small hollow. You can feel it if you press gently with 2 fingers. In traditional Chinese medicine, this point is called Taian-Tu, and it sits at the junction of the conception vessel and the yin linking vessel. It is associated with the voice, with expression, with the capacity to speak what is true even when truth is uncomfortable. But more relevant to what we are discussing, it is a point where the body holds the tension between what wants to emerge and what is being suppressed. Over the next 48 hours, when you feel the pull of an old pattern, when the urge to retreat or react rises, I want you to bring your attention to this point. Not your fingers, just your attention. Feel whatever is there. It might be tightness. It might be a flutter. It might be nothing at first. Stay with it. Breathe into it. And as you hold your attention there, ask one question. Not with your mind, with your body. The question is simply this: what am I about to choose? And is it the old pattern or the new one? You will know the answer instantly. The body does not deliberate. It does not construct arguments. It knows. And in that knowing, in that split second of recognition, you have access to Leibniz Vato. You can feel the old impulse and choose not to follow it. Not by suppressing it. Not by fighting it. By seeing it clearly and letting it pass through you like a wave that does not need to become action. Do this every time the pull arises. Every single time. For 48 hours. That is the practice. It is not complex. It is not esoteric. It is brutally simple and extraordinarily difficult, because the old pattern does not want to be seen. It operates best in the dark, in the automatic, in the space but below the conscious awareness. Bringing attention to it is the one thing it cannot survive. And here is why the timing matters so much. Why 48 hours and not a week, not a month, not some open-ended invitation to change whenever you feel ready. There is a concept in nonlinear dynamics called the bifurcation point. It is the precise moment where a system that has been pushed far enough from equilibrium must choose between 2 fundamentally different paths. Before the bifurcation point, the system can still return to its original state. After it, the system has committed to one path or the other, and returning to the previous state requires an entirely new disruption. Your life is at a bifurcation point. The pressure that has been building, the dissatisfaction, the longing, the sense that something fundamental needs to change, that pressure has pushed you far enough from your previous equilibrium that the system cannot simply return to normal. It must choose. And the window in which that choice is most fluid, most responsive to your conscious input, is approximately 48 hours from the moment the pressure reached critical intensity. For some of you, that moment was days ago, and the window is already narrowing. For others, it is happening right now as these words land. You will know which one you are by the quality of urgency you feel. Not panic, not fear. A clean, clear sense that this matters, that this specific moment in your life is not like the others, that something is genuinely at stake. I want to address something directly, because I can feel the resistance some of you are experiencing right now. A part of you is saying, this is manipulation. A part of you is saying this is just artificial urgency designed to keep you watching. And I want to honor that part, because it is doing its job. Skepticism is a form of protection, and protection is a form of intelligence. But I want you to notice something. The part of you that is skeptical and the part of you that clicked on this video are not the same part. The skeptic is the guard at the gate, but something deeper than the skeptic brought you here. Something that does not operate through analysis. Something that recognizes patterns your conscious mind has not yet named. And this is where we need to talk about what the universe actually is when we say the universe knows you have 48 hours. Because I am not using universe as a vague synonym for fate or destiny, or some anthropomorphic intelligence watching you from above. I am pointing to something far more precise and far more strange. In 1982, Alain Aspect and his team in Paris conducted the experiment that confirmed what John Bell had predicted theoretically in 1964. They demonstrated that two particles, once entangled, remain correlated regardless of the distance between them. Measure the spin of one particle in Paris, and its entangled partner in, say, the Canary Islands, instantaneously assumes the complementary spin. Not at the speed of light, instantaneously, as if the distance between them does not exist, as if, at some level, they are not two particles at all, but one system expressing itself in two locations. Bell's theorem proved that this correlation cannot be explained by any local hidden variable. There is no secret message passed between the particles. There is no signal traveling from one to the other. The correlation is non-local. It is built into the fabric of reality at a level deeper than space and time. David Bohm, the physicist who was one of the great unorthodox minds of the 20th century, proposed a framework for understanding this. He called it the implicate order. His idea was that what we experience as separate objects, separate events, separate moments in time, are actually unfolded expressions of a deeper, enfolded reality where everything is interconnected. Like a hologram, where every fragment contains information about the whole. The separation we perceive is real at one level, the explicate order, but it emerges from an underlying wholeness where the boundaries between things do not exist. If Bohm is right, and the experimental evidence for non-locality strongly suggests that something like his framework is necessary, then the phrase "the universe knows" is not mystical shorthand. It is a description of how reality actually works. You are not separate from the field of reality. You are an expression of it. And when the field shifts, when the implicate order rearranges itself, you feel it. Not as an idea, as a pull, as an inexplicable certainty that something is changing, as the strange, specific restlessness that brought you to this video at this moment. The universe does not know. You have 48 hours the way a person knows what time their appointment is. It knows the way a wave knows the ocean. It knows because you are not separate from it. Your window is its window. Your bifurcation point is a bifurcation point in the field itself, expressing through you, as you. And this is why the choice you make in this window matters beyond your personal life. This is not just about you getting unstuck or finally making the change you have been postponing. Every time a single node in the field, a single point of consciousness, chooses the new pattern over the old one, it shifts the probability landscape for every other node. This is not metaphor. This is how entangled systems work. A measurement at one point instantaneously affects the state at every correlated point. Your transformation is not a private event. It is a non-local event. It ripples. But let me bring this back down from the cosmic to the immediate, because the cosmic is useless if it does not change what you do when you put this video down. There is a specific phenomenon I want you to watch for over the next 48 hours. I call it the last temptation of the old self. It happens in every genuine transition, and if you do not know to look for it, it will catch you completely off guard. Here is how it works. As the old structure begins to dissolve, as the latent heat does its work, and the bonds of the previous identity start to break, the old self makes one final, extraordinarily convincing bid to reassert itself. And it does not come as obvious self-sabotage. It comes disguised as wisdom. It comes as a perfectly reasonable argument for why now is not the right time. It comes as a sudden opportunity that looks like exactly what you have been wanting, but is actually a more sophisticated version of the same trap. It comes as a feeling of peace that is not real peace, but the relief of surrendering back to the familiar. The way to distinguish the last temptation from genuine guidance is precise. Genuine guidance, the kind that comes from the deeper intelligence you are learning to trust, has a quality of expansion. Even when it is scary, even when it asks you to do something uncomfortable, it opens something in the chest. It makes the world feel larger. The last temptation, no matter how reasonable it sounds, has a quality of contraction. It makes the world feel smaller. Safer, yes, but smaller. If you pay attention to the body, not the mind's arguments, but the body's response, you will feel the difference immediately. Expansion versus contraction, opening versus closing. These are not abstract qualities. They are physical sensations, measurable in the dilation of your breath, the relaxation or tightening of your jaw, the openness or guardedness of your posture. The mind can be fooled. The body cannot. Not at this level. Tell me in the comments, have you felt it? That last temptation disguised as wisdom, the perfectly logical reason to retreat right when you were on the edge of something new. I want to hear your story, because when you name it, it loses its power over you. So here is what I am asking you to do. Not believe, not hope, not affirm. Do. For the next 48 hours, treat your body as the primary instrument of navigation. When a decision arises, any decision, from the significant to the seemingly trivial, pause. Find that point at the base of your throat. Breathe into it, and feel whether the choice you are about to make opens you or closes you. Then choose the opening every time, even when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable, because comfort in the middle of a phase transition is almost always the old pattern wearing a disguise. I want to go deeper into why this particular moment in time carries the weight it does, because there is something happening that extends beyond your individual biography. There is a phenomenon in physics called resonance. When you strike a tuning fork and hold it near another tuning fork of the same frequency, the second fork begins to vibrate without being touched. The energy transfers through the medium of the air, but only if the frequencies match. If the forks are tuned to different frequencies, nothing happens. The energy passes through without effect. You are a tuning fork, and the frequency you are tuned to determines what you resonate with in the field of experience. For most of your life, you have been tuned to a particular frequency, the frequency of your conditioning, your habits, your inherited beliefs, your unexamined assumptions about who you are and what is possible. And the reality you have been experiencing has been a faithful reflection of that frequency, not as punishment, as resonance. The field responds to what you are tuned to, the same way the second tuning fork responds only to its matching frequency. What is happening in this 48-hour window is a retuning. The crack that opened in your life, whatever form it took, has disrupted your previous frequency. You are between stations, so to speak. The old signal is breaking up, and a new one is trying to come in. But the new signal can only lock in if you stop trying to retune to the old frequency. If you keep reaching for the familiar, you are essentially grabbing the vibrating fork and dampening it, killing the new resonance before it can establish itself. This is why the instruction is so simple and so hard. Stop reaching. Let the old signal break up. Tolerate the static. The static is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the sound of retuning. It is the audible evidence that you are between frequencies, and the new one is trying to find you. There is a specific quality to the static that I want you to be able to recognize, because it has a texture that is different from ordinary confusion or distress. Ordinary confusion feels scattered. It pulls your attention in multiple directions. The mind races, trying to solve, to fix, to figure out. The static of retuning feels different. It feels dense, heavy, almost pressurized, as if the air itself has thickened. And underneath the density, if you are quiet enough to feel it, there is a hum, a low, almost subsonic vibration, like the feeling you get standing near a large transformer or a waterfall. That hum is the new frequency establishing itself. It is quiet because it is deep, and it is deep because it is real. When you feel that hum, do nothing, literally nothing. Do not try to amplify it. Do not try to understand it. Do not try to name it or claim it or turn it into an affirmation. Just let it be there. Let it vibrate. Let it do its work. Your job is not to create the new frequency. Your job is to stop interfering with it. I want to tell you about something that happened in a laboratory in 1997 that almost nobody outside of specialized physics circles has heard about. A physicist named Nicolas Guissin at the University of Geneva conducted an experiment in quantum entanglement that added a dimension most discussions of entanglement leave out. He and his team entangled pairs of photons and sent them through fiber optic cables to two villages on opposite sides of Geneva, separated by more than 10 kilometers. When they measured the photons, the correlations were exactly as quantum mechanics predicted: instantaneous, non-local. But what made Guissin's experiment distinctive was the precision of the timing measurements. He was able to demonstrate that if any signal were traveling between the two photons to coordinate their behavior, it would have to travel at least 10,000 times the speed of light. 10,000 times. Effectively, the correlation was not just faster than light. It was, for all practical purposes, outside of time altogether. Outside of time. Sit with that. The correlation between entangled particles does not travel through time. It exists in a domain where time, as we experience it, does not apply. And here is why that matters for you right now in this window. The part of you that is shifting, the deep structure that is being retuned, does not operate in linear time. The conscious mind does. The conscious mind experiences past, present, future as a sequence. But the deeper layers of your being, the layers where identity is actually formed and reformed, operate in something closer to what Guissin's photons demonstrated. A domain where the future and the past are not separate from the present. Where the choice you make now does not just affect what comes next, it retroactively reshapes what came before. This is Wheeler's delayed choice experiment applied to your life. The observation you make in this window, the choice to see clearly, to stay present, to let the old structure dissolve. That observation does not just determine your future, it determines the meaning of your past. Every painful experience, every apparent failure, every detour and dead end, those events are not fixed. Their meaning is suspended, like Wheeler's photon, waiting for the observation that will collapse them into one story or another. Choose the old pattern, and those experiences remain evidence that life is hard, that change is impossible, that you are fundamentally limited. Choose the new pattern, and those same experiences retroactively become preparation. Training, the necessary breaking down that preceded the breakthrough. The past is not what happened to you. The past is what you decide it means. And that decision is most fluid right now, in this window, while the structure is still soft. I want to give you a second practice now, something to layer on top of the first one. This one is for the quiet moments, the spaces between activity, the minutes before sleep, and the minutes after waking. In those liminal spaces, when the conscious mind is loosening its grip and the deeper layers are more accessible, I want you to do something very specific. Close your eyes. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. Not the throat point from before, but the chest. The space behind the sternum. And in that space, I want you to hold a single image. Not a goal, not a desire, not a visualization of what you want your life to look like. I want you to hold the image of an open door. That is all. A door standing open with light coming through it. You do not need to see what is on the other side. You do not need to walk through it. You just need to hold the image of the open door and let yourself feel the quality of the light coming through. This is not a manifestation technique. It is a communication. You are telling the deeper layers of your psyche, the layers that operate outside of linear time, that you are willing, that the door does not need to be forced, that it is already open, and that you are not going to close it again out of fear. The image of the open door works because it bypasses the mind's need to know what comes next. The mind wants a plan. It wants a destination. It wants guarantees. But the phase transition you are in does not have a destination yet. It has a direction. And the direction is through the door. Holding the image communicates willingness without demanding certainty. And that is exactly the stance that allows the new pattern to crystallize. Do this for 5 minutes before sleep and 5 minutes upon waking. That is all. 10 minutes total. But do it with your full attention, not as a routine. Not as a checkbox, as a conversation with the part of you that already knows what is on the other side of the door. Now I want to address the fear, because if you are genuinely in this window, you are afraid. Maybe not on the surface. Maybe the surface is calm, even excited. But underneath the surface there is fear, and the fear has a very specific content that I can name because it is the same fear in every genuine transition. The fear is not that the change will fail. The fear is that it will succeed. The fear is that you will actually become the person you have been pretending you want to be. And that person will live in a world you do not recognize, surrounded by demands you are not sure you can meet, stripped of the excuses and limitations that have been secretly protecting you from the full weight of your own potential. Read that again in your mind. The fear is not of failure. The fear is of success. The fear is that if the old identity truly dissolves, you will be left standing in the open, without armor, without a script, without the familiar suffering that has been your most reliable companion. Because suffering, as terrible as it is known. And the unknown, even when it is better, is terrifying to a nervous system that equates familiarity with survival. This is why people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that diminish them, patterns that are clearly destroying them. Not because they do not know better, because the known destruction feels safer than the unknown alternative. The devil you know. And the 48-hour window is the moment when the devil you know loosens its grip just enough for you to slip free. But only if you can tolerate the vertigo of the unknown long enough for the new ground to form beneath your feet. Here is what I need you to understand about that vertigo. It is not a sign that you are falling. It is a sign that you are no longer attached to the thing that was holding you in place. Vertigo is the sensation of freedom before the mind has learned to call it freedom. It is the same sensation, the same neurological event. The only difference is the label you put on it. Fear or freedom, falling or flying, and the label you choose in the next 48 hours will determine which one it becomes. There is one more piece of this I want to lay down before we close, and it has to do with what happens after the window. Because the window is not the transformation. The window is the phase transition. The transformation is what you build on the other side. When water completes its phase transition from ice, it does not immediately become a river. It becomes liquid water, sitting in the same pot, in the same kitchen. But its properties have fundamentally changed. It can flow. It can take the shape of whatever container it enters. It can dissolve things that ice could not. It can nourish in ways that ice could not. The external circumstances may look the same for a while, but the internal structure is entirely different. And because the internal structure is different, the way reality organizes around you begins to shift. Not overnight, not in a flash of light, in the quiet, persistent way that water shapes stone. Through presence, through consistency, through the gentle, relentless application of a new way of being. After the 48 hours, the practice does not stop, but it changes. During the window, the practice is about not interfering, about letting the dissolution happen, about vetoing the old pattern. After the window, the practice becomes about building, about consciously choosing, moment by moment, the thoughts, the actions, the relationships, the environments that are consonant with the new frequency, about protecting the new resonance the way you would protect a flame in wind. Not with force, with attention, with care, with the understanding that what has just been born in you is real but fragile, and it needs time to strengthen before it can withstand the full force of the world's insistence that nothing has changed. Because the world will insist. The people around you, the systems you are embedded in, the habits that have shaped your environment, all of these carry the imprint of your old frequency, and they will push back. Not maliciously, automatically. The way a river pushes back against a new stone in its bed. The water does not hate the stone. It simply follows the path of least resistance, and the stone is in the way. You are the stone now, and the river of your old life will push against you until it finds a new path around you. That takes time. That takes patience. That takes the willingness to be uncomfortable, to be misunderstood, to be temporarily out of place in your own life. But here is what I want you to hold on to. The river always finds a new path. Always. It has no choice. It is water. It flows. And once it finds the new path becomes the natural one, and the old one dries up and disappears as if it were never there. The discomfort is temporary. The transformation is permanent. But only if you do not move the stone. Only if you hold your position through the initial resistance. Only if you trust the process more than you trust the discomfort. Before we go further, I want to say this. Consider coming back to this video tomorrow morning. Listen to it again when the window is still open, when the neural pathways are still soft, and let it reinforce the new pattern before the old one has a chance to reassert itself. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone you know who is in their own window right now, send this to them. That is not a small thing. When you share this kind of awareness with someone who is ready to receive it, you create an entanglement between your transformation and theirs. The same non-local correlation we discussed with aspects photons begins to operate between 2 points of consciousness, choosing the new pattern simultaneously. Your shift accelerates theirs. Theirs reinforces yours. The field responds to coherence, and 2 tuning forks vibrating at the same new frequency are exponentially more powerful than one.